Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only, is not intended as financial advice. It is Setup Sunday. Let's take a look at some important and interesting things that are going to happen this week. The primary being the FOMC rate hike, which has a 100% effectively probability here. Maybe it's priced in, maybe it isn't. Maybe crypto recouples with legacy and legacy pulls back a bit. Maybe they go in opposite directions. At this point, it's a massive coin flip, but what we are seeing is strength from Dixie, despite previously getting that macro descending triangle breaking down. S&P continues to just look parabolic to me. Things I would watch for up here, bear divs, which are certainly here. Yearly pivot, it's hitting TA targets. I'll talk more about this on Monday, but it's hard to get truly bearish on this when you keep seeing headlines of there are bears that still exist and have existed for months and months and months. There are high net worth individuals who are allegedly heavily allocated to cash still. So we haven't really trapped anybody just yet, and people are still in denial. It seems that the market goes higher anyway without them. So we'll see if they actually get a pullback to allow them to deploy and allocate. But TA alone, TA guided me through the lows and actually going higher when really the only other person who acknowledged this was a TA-oriented person. Everyone was bearish last year on S&P. Anyway, something else to watch for here in the RSI, just the trend. We've seen this on Bitcoin a few times where you'll get this like arching RSI. So if RSI starts to go lower as prices go higher, that's definitely a big warning sign, just like it was at the current all-time high. The problem now, though, if you're bearish up here, everyone's looking at the all-time high thinking, okay, we're going to the all-time high. That's what people are saying. And this is the parabolic representation. Not perfect, banana, I don't know, call it whatever you want. Something else to watch for here would be lower lows to 44. Then the party might truly be over for a little bit. But if this thing can continue to some parabolic blow off top, party on, Garth. This is the big six. Maybe Netflix a little less so, maybe Tesla less so. I don't know, but all these charts look extremely ripe for a pullback. Tesla already in the midst of it, as I talked about last week. Tweeted out, rising wedge, bear divs all over this thing. Earnings came out and it went lower. So it looks like, 220, something like that, realistically. But this is in the midst of pulling back. Coin as well in the midst of pulling back. Grand scheme of things looks fine. For me, it's just a hold until it's below 50. 50 is a good stop loss all the way down here. Otherwise, just let it be. Hood, kind of the same thing. I'm not happy with the business at Hood or the business of Coinbase, but chart-wise looks totally fine. And Hood is certainly crypto adjacent. Square is another one, looks pretty good, crypto adjacent. So I'd much rather be playing in this playground than any of those six that look ready for a pullback. Now, if you were trading any of this stuff, the daily cloud, the 2-day cloud, Kijun, traditional settings, I'm kind of mixing my settings around up here, but traditional settings Kijun is where all of these realistically want to go. And you can see what an actual trend looks like, because we certainly don't have that on ETH or Bitcoin at this point in time. If we move on to crypto now, the less exciting side of the house where we get to overanalyze everything, because that's what happens when prices do nothing for weeks on end, which is totally fine. It's okay, right? It's the summer, people are doing stuff. This is Bitcoin dominance back to 50%. Still looks fine for highs. This is the type of edge to edge you want to see on the weekly Bitcoin cloud, for example. Here's a similar edge to edge, right? No matter what the chart is, and here's a bearish edge to edge. No matter what the chart is, the principles are always the same. And that really hasn't changed since I discovered what the hell the cloud even was. If you look at a quick alt overview, again, like I said last week and the week before, nothing's going on here. Maybe this will eventually complete as an inverted head and shoulders. This is just the market caps of altcoins, market caps of everything minus Bitcoin, ETH, and a few stable coins. This has chopped for a year plus. Could easily just keep chopping for quite some time. So that's telling me overall alt's not quite the place to be. Bitcoin's daily cloud, we're still bullish based on the cloud, based on price position, right? green cloud, above cloud, bullish TK cross. Unlike Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, we don't have this month over month extension of the Tenkin, this blue line. We're snaking all over the place in this thing, right? So yes, we are broadly bullish, but we haven't been cleanly bullish. So we're snaking back down below the Tenkin again, this blue line. So that would tell me that, hey, we're probably going to maybe attempt a 28K test. The problem with that is, if we start cruising lows here, we are so tight on the volatility metrics that we may start to see pile-on effect on the short side of things. And this certainly doesn't look like it wants higher highs in the moment. We're not consolidating at highs here. We're consolidating at range lows. We had a news event, massive volatility, didn't matter, just smacked right back down. So I think the only thing that could take us higher next week would be BlackRock ETF approval. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's always got to be in the back of your mind. What could take us lower is Fed hike and or some other negative news, just because, right? It doesn't even matter if the Bitcoin network's not even affected. I think that would send the entire market lower, whether it's any of the exchanges, any of the key people in the industry, any stablecoin news, right? All that stuff could easily send us lower across the board. Good news is on the weekly cloud, much like 2015, 2016, we're setting up for a nice move to 44 eventually. Now, what you don't want to do is be 100x long here expecting 44 and, there's some random news event that brings us to 28 or less. I wouldn't try to force anything here. I'm certainly not, spot long ETH, spot long BTC. I'm short on leverage ETH as a hedge, even though I'm confident ETH breaks up eventually, Bitcoin breaks up eventually. In the moment, I'm not confident week over week that this is going to hold. And it does look, to me, more bearish than bullish now, certainly than it did last week. Looking at the 20-week and 200-week, we are also recrossed here on a very uncommon cross. Historically, most of the time we've held above the 200-week. People talked about that ad nauseum in 2022 when we eventually broke below. So what we certainly don't want to see here is a recross bearish on any lower lows. That would take some time to bring that MA back down. As we stand here now, we could test 27, 28, still be okay. What you don't want to see is any lower low beyond, 25, whatever this level is here. We'll call it 25. And if I was trying to look for a bear case, no one's going to like this, but I'm just going to say, look, this looks like a head and shoulders potentially. You've got shoulder, head, shoulder, call it a 3 drive. I don't care. Call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it head and shoulders because that's what it looks like to me. So, okay. You got your descending volume profile mainly. Do I think we go 15 to 18? I don't. But that's what this potentially would measure to. So remember, I'm looking for bearish things, right? We're overanalyzing, price is doing nothing. First stop would certainly be this diagonal, which looks like we have a date with destiny, and then 25. And then if the wheels really get off the wagon down here, if there's some negative news about BlackRock ETF, right, the market's going to send it lower. It doesn't matter that it doesn't matter for Bitcoin. Price is just ready for anything news-wise as a catalyst, especially as it looks like to me to go down rather than up here. Maybe this is a channel, right? Either way, no matter how you want to measure this, to me, it doesn't look like it's good. It doesn't look healthy. If it holds as low, we're okay, right? But we got to get there and find out first. Also, what I said yesterday is watch for any hidden bullish divs like we had in 2016, 2017, where we'd get a higher low, in this case, potentially to 26 or whatever it is, and a lower low in RSI, which means bears tried to push it lower, momentum tried to push it lower, and it didn't actually reach a new low. So historically, when we've seen that, it's set us up for long-term continuation. Now, if we go to B-bands on the weekly, and we look at Bollinger Band width, which is just measuring the caliber of these two bands here, two standard deviations from the midline from price, we are the tightest we've ever been on Bollinger Band width on the weekly. So it's not just your imagination that we are unusually in a low volatility environment here on Bitcoin. And if we look historically at similar but not equal squeezes, this is the most extreme on the weekly, but if we look at similar squeezes that to me were important, specifically 2018, right? 2016 as well. These are the two that pop out for me. We certainly had chart patterns secondarily in 2016 and 2018. It's hard for me to twist this into a bullish chart pattern. If you've got something for me, I'm all ears. Let me know in the comments, but this doesn't really look bullish as much as I want it to look bullish. It just doesn't, right? Even though, yes, we are above the 20-week moving average still, and we're consolidating based on the bands above the 20-week, this is signaling that this should move higher. So I could be completely wrong, right? But any stop loss is easy. You just put a stop loss on higher highs. If you're short, like I'm short ETH, okay? So what am I looking for? Anything above 2K, and I'm out. I'm done, right? Maybe I'll get chopped around. Maybe I won't, but that's what I'm looking for. And like I've said a billion times already, any news event that's semi-related, that's negative or positive, is probably going to have an outsized effect on price because we are so tight on volatility. And the market's just ready to jump. ETH, by the way, same thing. This is ETH on the weekly. Tightest it's ever been by a country mile. The last time it was even close to this tight was ETC fork, pre-ICO, post-DAO hack, right? Kind of a mess. Sort of did lead to bearish continuation. I put a marker at 0.48 as far as the overlay on the width here. This was a case where we didn't actually go lower. This case, we certainly eventually went lower. So not a clean read overall compared to Bitcoin for weekly Bollinger Bands on ETH. We have less data anyway, but I'm always curious, right? Does this carry over to other stuff? When you're on the weekly time frame, ETH is really the only thing that has kind of the market data behind it and the volume historically to matter. So this too looks like it should break up. Unlike Bitcoin, I'm actually more bullish on this long-term ascending triangle. I'll get to that in a second. So I'm positioned opposite, right? I'm bullish on this pattern. I'm hedged short. I'm maybe bearish on the Bitcoin pattern. Still spot long, but it just feels right to me. And this is the bullish rectangle, potentially, right? I think this idea is pretty much donezo at this point, but let's say we do break higher. 33.4 is what it would measure to. But again, we're not consolidating at the top of this thing. We're consolidating below 30 at this point. Almost looks like someone's defending 30 from the bearish perspective. Here's that ETH ascending triangle. Been talking about this for months and months and months and months. It hasn't really done anything since the staking unlock. Mega descending volume here. Any lower low beyond, we'll call it 1600, 1575. And this pattern would probably be in trouble. But as it sits here, I still like higher highs eventually. I could be a fool, right? Maybe I get chopped up. Maybe this thing runs the stops, then goes higher. Certainly doesn't look like it wants to live anywhere close to 2000 at this point in time. Much like Bitcoin, ETH weekly cloud also projecting a move, a run to 3K. Much like, post ICO dump and consolidation and eventual move we had in 2020. So I very much like higher highs eventually. It just does not feel like ETH wants to move higher in the moment. This is sort of zoomed in on lower time frames for ETH. And even this, we keep printing up here some version of head and shoulders. I can't not see it. This whole thing here, head and shoulders, this thing here, head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders here, and then a bigger head and shoulders here. There was even a head and shoulders here. We cannot keep those highs for some reason. So until that's the case, it's hard for me to think that this is going to be bullish. Now, maybe this is a falling channel wedge. I don't know. But realistically, 2K is the level where things would need to get that I would change my mind in the near term. And there's certainly a lot of daylight between where that ascending triangle may fail, if we're being as generous as we can, versus this diagonal, which would make sense, just based on these two lows here. So certainly lean bearish on that. ETH BTC, again, a bunch of nothing. Neutral, bearish, till it's above 07. Probably just an ignore. I don't know anybody who's ever traded this thing effectively over a long period of time. You'll have your moves, and that's what you wait for. But when it chops up like this, I don't see a point personally in trading this. But maybe there's somebody out there who does really well on ETH BTC. One of the last thing I'll just mention is Link last week did come back to that horizontal resistance. So I would certainly add that to a watch list because it's one of the few, maybe comp curve, Dino DeFi, I'll look at that again on Wednesday. That stuff probably still looks okay. But this is one that hasn't had any positive momentum really since 2021, late 2020. It's just been very bearish for a long time. And it finally consolidated for a year. So maybe Q4 is where we see Link break out. We'll see. Lastly, I'll just mention the Grayscale stuff. GBTC discount has shrunk quite a bit, still around 27%. And the ETH Grayscale product still around 37%. So if I'm a large capital allocator, if I'm a high net worth individual and I'm aware of this stuff, I'm probably trading this instead of spot. I don't want to deal with coins. I don't want to deal with custody. This thing has a coupon. This thing's on sale, right? Never mind that it's got a 2% yearly fee, but it looks as though these products have eyeballs on them because of the BlackRock activity. And until these discounts close, it may be harder for spot pairs to move when it looks like we don't really have inflows right now. It's just us here, right? It's us and the 30 viewers that I have on YouTube, right? That's about it. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Happy trading.